Okay, hi, it's John Glynn again, and I'm just going to add on some information regarding my last video to do with clouds. I dropped in some clouds in the previous picture of this one, but we may want to enhance aspects of the picture after we've added the clouds. So to do that, I'm adding on this little video to do with masking. Okay, so it's more of an advanced masking tuition, pretty much. So this is the original photograph, as you can see, before the clouds were added. This was the picture with the clouds added, but it's a fairly sort of muted colours. We might want to make the colours zing out a bit, become more exciting to look at. It's very, well, maybe fairly natural, but not very exciting. Okay, so we're going to add some colour to this particular photo by making the reds a bit redder, but in the process of making the reds redder we may end up also making the blues bluer, and that's maybe not what we want, so we also have to mute them down a bit as well. And you could mute down those, you could mute down the top one as well at the same time if you wish to, or you can do them individually. I'm going to do them individually, at least on the bottom one anyway. So I'm going to go through that process, and to do that I'm going to remove aspects which are here, because otherwise you won't know what I've been doing. So I'm going to take us back to this stage. This is the end of the video on adding a sky. Okay, so what I want to do is now be able to enhance the bridge, give it stronger colours, bring it out a bit more, and to do that I'm making sure that I've obviously got the background copy here highlighted. Okay, background copy is highlighted. You can give these names, so I could just call that bridge. So we now know that's going to be the bridge layer. To give it a more power, I'm going to go up to my adjustment options with the layers palette, which is a sort of yin yang blue and white circle, and I'm going to go to hue and saturation, and I'm just going to up the saturation, because I want to make the reds redder. I don't want it to be over the top, mind you, but at the same time I do want to boost it. I'm not going to actually change the colour of the red, I just want to make it red, so it's just going to be stronger red. But in the process of doing that you can see the whole picture changes. So there is a problem there, and I don't want the whole picture to change, but at the moment I'm just looking at the bridge. Okay, I've got the bridge. I'm now going to go to my hue and saturation layer number 2, because I've already done one for the sky previous to this one, and I'm going to just click the right mouse key, and what I'm going to do is create a clipping mask. A clipping mask means that this effect that I've done to the picture will only impact the layer below it. It won't impact the layers below the layer, so therefore it works on saturation 2 and the bridge, but it hasn't worked on hue and saturation layer 1 and the sky. They're still a separate unit. Okay, but now you can see that my railing here in the foreground is very blue indeed, because I've accentuated all the colours in this part of the picture. So what I'm going to do now is go back to my bridge layer. So I've got the bridge layer active, and I'm going to make a new selection. So the selection I'm going to make now is going to be using well, let's just see if I can use the magic wand on this tolerance and just see what it picks up. Okay, it picks up quite a bit, but maybe that's a quick way of doing it. And then going to my quick selection tool, I want to actually delete, I want to remove some of those selections, because some of them are just, I don't need all the bridge and the water and everything to be selected. So I'm going to hold the Alt key down, and holding the Alt key down I can remove selections I don't want. and keeping on doing that, I can move down and just take out bits I'm not interested in the water, for instance. Oops, if it takes out everything, that doesn't really help. So that was a little bit on the big side. I'll just make this bit smaller and I'll add it back in. I've also got the top one selected, so I may actually keep that selected. Let's make it a little bit bigger and just drag along. Now this is actually picking up too much, but not to worry, because I can deselect in a minute. The same technique as I've just used. I'm going to hold down the Alt key and just slowly push it back in on itself, which is what I was going to do anyway. So there we are. Sometimes shortcuts aren't actually any quicker than the long cut. So let's very quickly remove areas I'm no longer wanting to select. It doesn't have to be 100%, by the way, because we can work on it later in the mask. But if the bulk of it's done, it saves time and hassle later on. Just let it work its way through all of that and slowly push its way back up. This area here is very, very similar, so it can jump back in. So I have to do this very carefully and very slowly. And I don't mind if little bits of it are left out, because I can, as I say, work on them later in the masking of itself anyway. And okay, I'm going to include, in this case, the top one as well, just so that the whole lot is kept in a similar fashion. Take out the sky. I don't want the sky to be included. Oh. And just work my way down. Oops, it's included the sky, of course. It always will include everything you don't want it to include. It's Sod's law. Okay, that may give us something to work with on that as well. So we'll leave it as it is, and I'll have a look and see how that pans out, and I may be able to play around with that again in the mask. So what I'm going to do now is go to Refine Mask, as we would have done in the previous lesson, and we can feather stuff as well if we want to and smooth them out only a bit. We don't need to have it too sharp or too soft, because otherwise that may look a bit odd. So earlier, and that's whisker softness and smoothing. Smoothing is maybe more important than feathering in this occasion. And I know it's not perfect, but it's not far off, so I'm going to say OK to that. So I'm going to say selection, and my selection is new layer with a layer mask. Remember, we're going to create a layer mask with a new selection, so just as we would have done previously. And I'm going to say OK. And initially you think, oh dear, it's all gone wrong, but you look at your layers palette. Now there are a number of factors here. We need to move the saturation 2 back down to the bridge below, and we need to make sure that that it's hooked in. And it's, of course, because I'll show you it in the layers palette. My bridge copy, which I'd created just now with that mask, had got in the way of the previous saturation hue and saturation 2, which was only impacting the bridge. So I now need to just recreate the clipping mask on that layer. So now I've got the clouds with its own hue and saturation layer. I have the bridge with its own hue and saturation layer. If it's in the wrong place, move it back down and recreate the clipping if need be. And I've also got a new layer called the bridge copy, which is actually not the bridge at all, but is going to be the railings. So let's just call that railings. So we now know that there's railings, and I'm then going to adjust the colour of the railings because we'd already decided they were too blue before, or the wrong saturation. So I can go up to my hue and saturation. Here we have it up here. Hue and saturation. And if I change the hue and saturation at this point, it's going to change the whole picture, of course, as we already know. So we're not going to be doing that. We're going to clip it. So I'm going to click the right mouse key again, click the right mouse key over the new hue and saturation layer, number 3, and go to create clipping mask. So it is now only impacting the railings and nothing else. And you'll see that when I change the colour of the railings. Okay. I'm not wanting them to be particularly red or green, but I may not want them to be a strong shade of blue either. So I got the option of changing the blue slightly, and also, if I wish to, desaturating the colours slightly so they're not going to bounce out at me. They can be quite a sort of a grey blue rather than a blue blue. Okay, they're there without being in the way. Now at this stage we may have to refine them slightly, because remember they weren't perfectly masked, but I can zoom in using my navigation tool. I can panel there, I can zoom in, and I can clean up the edges again using my paintbrush. So I go to my railings. Here's the railings layers palette. Make sure that the mask is selected in the railings palette. Choose a black and white paintbrush. So I've got paintbrush and black and white paint, and checking the opacity, I can decide how much of the paint or background I wish to show through. I may not want it 100%. I may just want it to sort of reduce the shade, the colour, without making it completely disappear. So I'm merging it in to the railings. The old blue, merging it in, and the same all the way along. There's a funny blue haze here which may not look very natural, so I can reduce it and make it more sort of natural to the environment I've actually photographed in. And I may have to do the same now with this one at the top as well, for the same reasons that I may have to, in that case, change it to the black. I'm not sure. Let's have a look and just see what we have up here. Now that may have to be 100% for the sky. Remember that the sky, we're wanting to paint in the sky. I may have to just play around a bit with that hue. Now the sky is there. Now that dark blue is the railing, and so it may be something which I've got to work on. So let's just reduce the opacity, just then drop it to the white on my square, and I can reduce the opacity. Now this takes a little bit of work on it. I don't want to end up impacting the sky particularly, so just take that out of the sky, cut back to the white, and I'm just going to speed the process up, but hopefully not to a point where I destroy everything. And I can then move along the top of that bar. Now it might be that I've got it at 60% opacity. That may be enough, it may not be. So it's something you'd have to work out as you do it, how strong you want the different layers to impact each other. Oops, didn't want to do that. I don't want to, that one, I just want that, that's it. So that it becomes kind of more natural. Oh dear, moving all over the place here. There we and just at the other end, oh dear, that's blue, blue and a half, that is. Let's just take that blue out. We don't want to impact the sky particularly, because obviously the sky is meant to be the same all over, but this blue underneath is too much. And we can take it down. And take it down. And same on the top. Let's just get rid of that blueness. I've zoomed in a lot. It's nearly 100% magnification. So hopefully it won't be too obvious to people who have never seen it picture before that you've done anything to it, because they won't be looking for weird colours like this to be coming into the picture. So they won't know that you've been working on your photograph if you don't tell them. If you don't say, oh, look at that weirdness, or no non-weirdness. So now let's have a quick look at that, and as we zoom in and zoom out we can get an idea of it, and it now looks fairly natural. We've now got the option, well, as natural as given a totally unnatural scene. We can now go back to our sky if we wanted to, and we can choose to boost the colour, make it bluer, make it greyer, independent of everything else that's in the picture as well, because remember you've already done the sky, and I think that's pretty amazing. I think that's pretty good overall. If I now go back to the original picture and go to our new picture, you can see that it has dramatically changed, and I think that it's probably changed for the better. Okay, so remember that's using these masks. Naming the masks, naming your layers can help just to keep you in tune with where you are, and creating a mask for these sort of units within the picture and clipping the hue and saturation to each layer means that you're only impacting the specific mask. You're not impacting all layers. So have a go, and hopefully it will work as well for you as well. Okay, thanks for watching.